Greetings. Welcome, sharp squares and newbies, as we like to say each and every week. This is the Parleh Sports Betting Show on Canada's Sports Betting Network. I'm Jorey Middlestadt. The pro, the other bald guy, is Harley Redlick. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Jorey. How you doing?
I'm okay on this Friday morning. Reminder, folks, we want your feedback. Talk to us. Email us questions at theparleh.com. Hit either one of us up on Twitter. I'm at Jorey Middle. He's at Sharp Edge Picks. If you're seeing the video version of the show, you can take it right off the screen. And if you are watching video, by the way, apologies for the old school wired headphones. Some technological difficulties this morning with the AirPods. So if you are watching the video and you have to look at the wires sticking out of my ears, apologies. What's happening on this week's show? Well, we're going to look at two large slates, one in the NBA, one in the NHL. As it turns out, they're matching 9-game slates in both leagues tonight. And Harley's going to talk to you about the system betting that he uses in both leagues. We are going to have, I'm going to try again to give you some long shot winners at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, always a popular stop on the PGA Tour because of the name of the tournament, as well as it's a huge purse, one of the biggest for a regular tour event, and always draws a good field. We'll have our gambling story or stories of the week. I actually don't even know specifically what they are. Harley's bringing those to the table later on in the show. And our gambling concept of the week is hedging. We've touched upon it before just a little bit, but we're going to revisit it and in particular get Harley's thoughts on why he does or does not like hedging. I'll give you a little preview. He's not a fan, but I'll let Harley take that and run with it in just a few minutes. But first, we have to recap what happened last week, and we like to do it each and every week, and we will do it win or lose or draw if that happens. And if you've been watching or listening to the show the first 7 weeks and you've been basically just betting Harley's picks, you would be up a shit ton of money right now, especially depending on how you allot your money and if you bet by units, which we've talked about. In other words, you know, if your one unit play is $10 and you've gone up to 2 or 3 units, which would double or triple it, you'd be doing extremely well. And along those lines, and I know Harley hasn't said much yet, I am going to pat him on the back because last week he killed it, like just slayed it in every possible way. And you're going to hear more about his super halftime system in the NBA, which was, it just worked like a charm last week. He had OKC in the first half over Indiana plus 190. So these are money line bets for the underdog to win the first half outright. OKC, winner. Dallas, first half over the Utah Jazz plus 200, check mark. And the New Orleans Pelicans in the first half over the Phoenix Suns plus 210, another check mark. So do the math. That's basically plus 600 on 3 bets. And for good measure, add in an underdog in the NCAA and college hoops. He had Nebraska as a plus 12-point home dog. So laying the 110 normal juice on a point spread bet. As I recall, I think they lost by 10. Guess what? Winner. Chicken dinner. And I should also add, you had the Buffalo Sabres the other night, Wednesday night, against the Leafs. I think you went goal line. Is that correct?
I went goal line plus 2, plus 105. I didn't have the
You should have had the money line for plus 330, the biggest money line underdog to cash this year in the NHL, but a win's a win.
A win is a win. If you would have bet them minus 2 or 2.5 goals on an alt line, you could have gotten 30 to 1 on your money, and that would have won. I mean, the last couple nights, Ford opens up the Scotiabank Arena to 20,000 yelling fans, and back-to-back nights you get a stinker and big upset losses by the Leafs and then the Raptors.
So I just wanted, before we talk about hedging, I should also add one other thing.
Your tennis performance.
Yeah, I don't want to pump my tires. I said
I'll pump you. Tennis, Jorey. You play well. You bet well.
I've been doing okay lately. I've been doing okay. I told you I liked Rafa Nadal at plus 120 to beat Medvedev. These were the semifinal matches in Acapulco. But I said, but I loved Cam Norrie to take out Stefano Tsitsipas at plus 130. Cha-ching, both cash. So Hope you're listening to us. I will add my golf picks, which are more fun lottery type picks. And we'll talk about that when we get to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. None of my guys cashed. But if you watch the tournament last week, right, the Honda Classic, Sepp Straka ended up winning the tournament. He was somewhere around plus 120, like 125 to 1 going into the week. And in the midst of the fourth round, Harley, you could have taken him when he was like 5 back on the front 9. And then that lead started to shrink because Daniel Berger just completely shit the bed. He had a 5-shot lead going into the final round. You could have got him still at like 15, 20, 25 to 1 when he was only like 3 shots back, I think, at that point. So if you like in-game golf and you're watching the tournament, always, look for a guy who's a few shots back, because in a hole or two, things can change dramatically. And it was actually a fun watch if you got to see the end of the Honda Classic. But getting back to the Sabres and the Leafs Wednesday night. So you went on the puck line. And if you look going into that, right, the Sabres had lost 6 in a row. The Leafs had won 3 in a row. If you know anything about the standings at the moment, I think going into the game, they were separated by like 36 points or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, and I know you did a video. That was one of your picks on the parlay. We encourage you to look at the parlay every day and follow Harley and all the other great content creators that are posting videos, mainly with picks each and every day. So just quickly, what went into your handicapping there for those who didn't see the video? What was your thought process in taking the Sabres?
Plus 2 goals, plus money. To me, 2 goals is a lot in hockey. To lose the bet, the other team needs to beat you by 3 goals. Like, that's an insane amount in hockey. I just thought it was overdone, and there was a little bit of value on the Sabres. I didn't think the Sabres were going to crush the Leafs, but there's a lot of 1-goal games in hockey. There's a lot of overtime games in hockey. Even if you lose with the empty netter by 2, or you're down, even if you're down 4-1 and you put in a late goal, you still push your bet. You got to lose by 3 goals to lose that bet. It just seemed like it was a little overdone. And if you saw what happened last night in hockey, there were huge upsets again. The Flames lost to Montreal. Who else lost? Colorado lost to the Coyotes.
Arizona, yeah.
I mean, the upsets happen. It's for sure. Hockey is starting to become like what basketball used to be, where you're seeing these minus 500 favorites night in and night out, but I'm not sure if it's justified.
Okay. So our betting concept of the week is one we've touched upon briefly before, but we wanted to revisit it. And that is hedging. So first, just a basic definition from a betting perspective as to what hedging is, and then we'll get deeper into it.
So hedging means betting the opposite of your initial bet to lock in some profits. People do it with parlays. So for example, maybe you bet a 14 parlay and you won the first 3 games and you're looking at a big payout. So you bet the other side of the team you bet to cover or lay it off or money manage. People do it a lot of times with futures. So I mean, in the extreme example, you had
you have a team to win the Super Bowl, right? You have a team to win the Super Bowl that you've locked in your money all year long, and they actually make it to the Super Bowl, right?
Correct. You can do it in the Super Bowl. People are starting to do it now, even at halftime of games. So you bet a team in a pick'em game who's up in the NFL by 10 at the half, and you can bet the other team in the second half, and you can try to hit for a middle and lock in some profits.
Just so people are clear, right? Because remember, I know sharp bettors and experienced bettors know what we're talking about when we say you're hedging to try and hit a middle. Just quickly explain that for people.
Fair enough. So imagine in a football game that was a pick'em game to start, you bet Green Bay, they're pick'em in Dallas against the Cowboys, and they're up by 10 at the half. So the line for the second half might be Dallas -2. So if you were to bet Dallas -2 in the second half and you got Green Bay at pick'em, it's just Dallas -2 for the second half. So if Green Bay wins that game by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 type of thing, you hit the middle, you win both sides of the bet, and you do it quote unquote risk-free because you can't lose. And a lot of people are under the misconception that that's a smart money management decision, and it's not.
Okay, I'll add one more thing and then I'll let you explain why you're taking that position. You mentioned people do it with parlays. Like I've seen a lot of, and many years ago, I would actually consider doing this where, you may bet a 3 or a 4 game parlay and you'll take the first 3 games on a Sunday afternoon, during the day, and then have the 4th game on the Sunday night or the Monday night. So it gives you that opportunity to hedge if you're looking at a big payout. And you say, don't do it. Why?
And we'll get into exceptions after we discuss why not to do it. Why are you betting that last leg of the parlay just for the sake of laying it off? Just don't bet the last leg. What are you doing? You're making a bet specifically laying extra juice so then you could bet the other side of it and lay more juice for no reason. In general, I keep pushing people, avoid uncorrelated parlays. There's no need to do it. But if you really want to do it just because you want to see a payday on the ticket, then ride it out and get the payday on the ticket. But don't add a team under what premise? What if your first leg loses, you rip up the ticket, and then if your first leg or your first 3 legs win, you're just going to hedge it? Just avoid it or just drop it from the bets altogether.
Okay, and so what are the exceptions to that rule?
The exceptions to the rule, to me, there are 3 exceptions. One, when we're talking in-game, if you're feeling genuinely changes at halftime, then hedging makes sense because it's a separate value bet. For example, you're watching a football game. You thought your team was going to win by running the ball well. They can't run the ball at all, but they got lucky. Maybe a bounce, a pick 6. If you're feeling genuinely changes of the game mid-game, betting the other side to me is a legitimate value bet because you're not really doing it to hedge.
So it's the eye test, right? The way you handicap the game, it's not going that way. And you thought one team's strengths would show versus another team's weakness, et cetera, et cetera. And the game script is just not playing out that way. So that would be the exception where your eyes are telling you your handicap was wrong and it might be worth, to cover your ass and hedge.
Correct. That's number 1. There's 3 exceptions to me.
Oh, okay.
Exception number 2, your circumstances change significantly in life. And this is applicable to like a Super Bowl future bet. For example, you knock up your girlfriend or you get pregnant and you need money and you're sitting on a $10,000 ticket if the Rams win the Super Bowl and you can cash it out and bank $6,000 right before the Super Bowl. Your life circumstances change. When you made the bet, you were prepared to ride it out for the 10K. Your financial circumstances change, and all of a sudden, the 6K means a lot more to you. Cash it out.
All right. And what's the third exception?
There are times where you have to bet parlays, and that was applicable when Proline used to rule in Ontario. There are something called parlay tickets in Las Vegas. William Hill used to offer them with phenomenal payouts because they were tough tickets to bet, but you got static lines, meaning the lines didn't move, and you had to bet big parlays. And the 10-teamers paid 800 to 1.
Right.
But that's where the most value was. So if you decided to bet $100 ticket at 800 to 1, because that's where all the value laid out, and then you're standing to win 80 grand and you're on the last leg, or especially if you box a bunch of them and maybe you won one of them, and then you have like $500,000 riding on the results of a Monday Night Football game, there's a point where the dollars just get so insane that just for bankroll management, you can handle laying off. But even then, when I've laid off in the past where I've had 100,000 going on a game because a bunch of parlays hit, I would maybe lay off 10, 15% of it. You're not laying off 40 or 50%, or you're just giving up way too much vig.
Right. So, yeah, you're looking to still have a healthy win, but not take away the potential for that big payout in this scenario that you've just laid out as the third exception.
Correct.
All right. So
one
there's
final.
Okay, yeah, you want to add
note?
something?
Yeah, I do. Fade hedgers. You can make good money. This is a great tip from the great poker player, the great poker writer Sklansky. He used to wait for halftime, and he would only bet NFL games at the half. And he'd bet the team who was outperforming in the first half for two reasons. One, they were playing better. Two, he knew the bulk of the bettors betting at halftime were just betting the other side to lay off their bet. So think about how great it is to get the team who's playing better and getting the value and the extra points on that team. So fading hedgers is a great way to go about betting halftime lines.
All right. So to summarize, hedging, not a great idea. There are exceptions, and based on how you outline them, they're pretty rare. So it's rare circumstances that you want to even consider hedging. But on the flip side, fading the hedgers is not a bad way to go. Do I have that all right?
You got it all right. One final note, because there's a new concept that's tied into hedging called cashing out your bets.
Yes. Oh, yeah. How do you feel about the early cash out?
That's horrendous. That's worse than hedging because they rip you off even more. Because, I mean, the online books are there to prey on the stupid and the weak. And a lot of these people make $100 bet that maybe pays out $190. And then they see, whoa, I could bank $30 or $40 right now and cash it out for $140. That's amazing. No, it's not. Your bet is worth $150 or $160. If you look at the juice they charge for the cash out, it's literally double had you just bet the other side. You're always better off betting the other side than the cash out value. They really, really pillage the people doing the cash outs. Never cash outs.
Never? No exceptions.
There's no exception. You're better off just betting the other side in play or in game. There's always a way to do it cheaper if you really, really want to hedge. But again, if you find yourself hedging more than once a month, you're giving away money and you're not going to be profitable long term, period.
All right. So I can tell you right now, when we talk about tonight's 9-game NBA sched, there will be no hedging from Harley at any point tonight. And again, we're recording here on Friday morning. What are we? March the 4th. Just so everybody knows what time of day and what day it is. So as I mentioned, 9 games tonight, including the Raptors on a back-to-back against Orlando after a stinker. They can't beat their former coach, Dwayne Casey. It's one of those like mysteries because the Pistons stink and have for 3 years. Raps can't beat Dwayne Casey. They fared better against the Orlando Magic. The other good matchups well, there's a bunch of them. There were a bunch last night, actually. So I'm going to throw it over to you to talk again about your super halftime system, which was gold last week. 3 winners, all at an average of plus 200. So what caught your eye today?
Again, the system works. You're getting about 2-1 on your winners. You got to win about a third of your games to break even long term, which is better than most. With the bonuses, etc., you're in good shape. What I'm looking for is road teams who are about 5 to 9 point dogs for the game, and I bet them in the first half on the money line. The value comes because there's very little to no home court in the first half. You're getting the value because they're building it into the line because it's a derivative line from the game line, and ignoring the fact that the home court bump comes late in the game. Even the Raptors game last night, when the Raptors are coming on strong late and the fans are cheering, I mean, there was a really questionable loose call foul ball that went the Raptors' way late in the game. That's where the home court matters, not in the first half versus the Pistons. So there's 3 games tonight that fall in the wheelhouse if you just look at the board. The Cavs are +7 at Philly for the game. The Magic are +8 at the Raptors for the game. And the Knicks are +7 at the Suns for the game. You cannot bet my first half system this early. The sports books wait until the lines are finer. But the Cavs, the Magic, and the Knicks will all fit the system. They'll all be probably just under 2-1. Again, you bet all 3. You win 1, you break about even. The Cavs, the Magic, and the Knicks tonight are all in the sweet spot of my system.
All right. Sorry, I'm writing this down, so I'm ready for next week. Cavs, Magic, and was Knicks?
Yeah. Why are you waiting for next week, Jorey? In a couple hours from now, the lines will be out. And
No, I'm just writing down your picks. No, I'm writing down your picks so I remember, right? So I remember what you picked.
Mm-hmm.
So Cavs, again, and we should point out the game time. So the Cavs are a 7 p.m. tip at the Sixers, who are undefeated, by the way, since James Harden hit the court. Mm-hmm. The Magic are a 7:30 tip at the Raptors. Raptors playing on a back-to-back after that disappointing loss to the Pistons. And the Knicks at the Suns is a late tip. That's a 10 p.m. And you're saying wait a bit for the lines as opposed to jumping in now?
For the halftime.
Oh, right. Just the game lines are out, not the half times. Okay,
right.
So you got 3 more plays, and you figure they should all be around 2-1. I'm going to guess that the Knicks will probably be, +200, +210, and Magic probably in that space as well, right? I guess Cavs too, because all the game spreads are about 7-8 points.
I think you're going to see just under 2-1 on the Magic, and the Cavs and the Knicks will probably be about +175.
Okay. So 3 games, Harley's NBA Super Halftime System, which is a perfect 3-0 here on the Parleh Sports Betting Show.
Exactly. I wanted to know one thing, Jorey. I'm glad you brought up the Raptors and how they lost again to the Pistons. A lot of people told me yesterday they like the Pistons again because they're traditionally, Casey and the Pistons play them well.
Yeah.
Just so everybody understands, the line makers pay 0 attention to stuff like that. So if it's a trend you believe in and makes sense, bet it, because it's not built into the line. Line makers think of this stuff like Casey has the Raptors number as noise. No different than the Raiders having won on Monday Night Football in their last 7. That might span 5 years and 3 quarterbacks. So again, if there's a trend like that you believe in, if you genuinely believe there's something about the matchup, whether it's the Pistons rallying Casey because they think their poor coach got screwed and turfed by Toronto before he won a championship, or he knows how to beat the Raptors in defense, etc., or whatever it is you believe in, the line makers don't care about those types of trends. They do power ratings and set a line based on that. So if you think there really is something to the matchup, that is something you can exploit.
Well, and I will add that early in the day yesterday, at least the news I saw was that Fred VanVleet was going to play. Mm-hmm. And then right before game time, it was announced that he wasn't. Obviously, that will impact the line. It will change without question. But that is something that, if you liked the Pistons and got in early, you would have got the benefit of a great line. As it turned out, it didn't matter because they won. They won as outright as an underdog. And it's funny you brought up trends because that is a betting concept that we are going to talk about in the very near future. It's one that we haven't touched upon yet. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you brought that up. Put that in the back of your bald head, and we're going to talk about that in the coming weeks. Actually, it may make an appearance when we do our NCAA March Madness Super Show in about 10 days from now, which we'll talk about a little later. So moving right along, 9 games in the National Hockey League tonight. Some good matchups. And was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? I guess it may have been pre-Super Bowl. Now I can't remember which show. They're all blending together. But you like parlays, which is rare for you. Any professional will rarely be a regular parlay bettor. I want to point that out. but you like to pair under the total goals for the game with an underdog in the same game and parlay them together. So just recap how you approach, what your 2-game or your 2-leg parlay is for the National Hockey League and what you like tonight.
So my sweet spot is betting under 5.5 in the NHL with the underdogs. I want it to be under 5.5 because I want a tight game. It leads to the under and the dog. You win an OT or shootout, 2-1 or 3-2 in a close game. I love it, especially when there's a defensive-oriented team I can get. A reminder to all the listeners, line shop always for maximum payout. There's great sites for this. I use Best Odds a lot. I learned from their site that FanDuel comes out with early hockey lines the day before, but DraftKings actually tends to charge a bit less vig. The game day is also good for this type of stuff. It does a good job, very user-friendly, and shows you right by each game the sports book with the best odds. Unabated and covers are also solid.
I was going to say, covers is another one that I've used in the past where they'll list, 15 different books, and they also show you the opening line, and so you can see how the line has moved and where everybody is as well. Yeah.
100%. One of the reasons for that, for a lot of us liking covers and knowing covers, is they're largely Canadian based. I think there are a lot of their guys are in Eastern Canada.
They're based. Yeah, they're based, I think, in Halifax. Yeah.
Yeah, they do a good job. Again, you need to use at least one of these sites. Pick a site that works for you. Some of them have some free picks and analysis. That's always helpful. Looking at tonight's games, nothing fits. Even though there's lots of games, the games have over-unders of 6 or even 6.5. More scoring in hockey are late, and that's the nature of betting systems. They evolve or they don't work as the games change. And my sweet spot is with the under 5.5. So there's 2 lessons or takeaways I'd give our listeners. One is games change and you need to adjust. I remember crushing baseball post-steroid betting unders until the sports book adjusted. I'm a big trend guy like that. Adjust to the trends, not the noise. Meaning hockey's now pulling their goalies with 3 minutes to go, not 1 minute. That affects the over-unders. That's real. Not something you notice for a week in December. That's noise. The second thing is you need to pass. Don't press if you find something that doesn't work. I don't like anything tonight in hockey on my parlay system with the 5.5s and the unders. So even though, as you mentioned, I lost a couple games with it last week, I'm not going to bring new bets into the fold. There are some value bets we could talk about soon that I do like separately in the NHL tonight, but there is nothing that fits my system, in which case I'm just going to take a pass on the system for the week.
All right. So you just opened the door. You said there's some value plays in the NHL tonight. You got a few teams on back-to-backs off kind of what you might call big games. Like last night, Pittsburgh beat Tampa in Tampa. Carolina got shut out by Washington, and they're playing each other tonight. Penguins, Hurricanes. I don't know if that's the game that you like. And Tampa's back at it tonight too, hosting the Detroit Red Wings. Not a great slate tonight, I must say. I guess maybe the best matchup is certainly Pittsburgh and Carolina, but what caught your eye for value?
So I like under 6.5 goals, minus 120 in the Red Wings Tampa game. 6.5 is a big number in hockey. Tampa's a huge favorite in that game. Coming off a back-to-back, you're right. They do want the win after their loss, but not the freshest of legs, which tends to lead to more defense and unders. So I do like under 6.5 goals in the Red Wings Tampa. And I like the Sabres again tonight, plus 170. They're playing the Wild, who won last night on the road. Now they're traveling again to play on the road for a second game of a back-to-back. It's just a tough spot to be in. If you bet 40% on the Sabres plus 170 and 60% on the Tampa minus 120, you split in profit, and those are my 2 hockey value bets for the night.
One quick note on the Lightning Red Wings game. I'm almost positive Vasilevsky played last night, so the chances are he's not going to go tonight. When you're looking at an under, how much do you factor in goaltending?
I've said before, if you catch me on a good day, I like the unders even more with the backup goalies because the defense and even the offensive players on the team, out of a courtesy or almost respect of trying to have the backup goalies back, are more mindful of playing defense. They don't take as many chances because they don't want to put the goalie in an uncomfortable position where he's facing a lot of 2-on-1s or 3-on-1s. So it doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother you at all that it's a backup, especially I bring that up because obviously Vasilevsky is considered, the best goaltender in the league. Apologies this season at the moment to Shesterkin, right? The Rangers, who's the front runner for the Vezina. But I just, the backups play more now than, in the past for sure. But I just wanted to check how much that factors into your handicapping when the backup's in. And it's clearly a big drop off from a guy like Vasilevsky to Elliott, who's the backup in Tampa. You'd mentioned to me just briefly when we were just going over what we were going to talk about today, and we don't get into specifics just so people know, right? Like most of this is just off the cuff. We're just, right? We just have literally, we're going to talk about this, and this. Just if you've seen the video version of the show, right? There's a little rundown in between our bald heads. But we don't go deep into discussion, but you had mentioned something about volatility that you wanted to touch upon, right?
Yeah,
or did you want to do it later?
We can talk about volatility now. It's huge, especially for a guy like me who bets underdogs. You had mentioned I lost a couple of the bets a couple weeks ago with the hockey. When I'm betting the under 5.5s and the dogs, I'm only supposed to win 20% of the time. So 80% of the time I'm going to lose. Or in the NBA, if I can win 3 in a row like I did last week at 2-1 odds, the odds of that are 1 in 27. I'm just as likely as that to lose 8 in a row in the NBA at 0.66 to the exponent 8. That's about 1 in 27. So what I do is incredibly volatile, and it's important for all listeners to understand you don't get discouraged when you're losing if you believe in your system and the math supports it. I wrote an article a few years back for Sharp Edge Picks where I talked about a theoretical pro. Check this out and listen to this. This theoretical pro made one value bet a day, getting 3-2 odds. He'd bet $5,000 a bet. The theoretical pro is sharp enough to make a great 3.4% profit margin and $62,000 per year. That's pretty good, right? $62,000 a year. That's cash money in Canada. Playing sports, betting sports, life is great, right? Listen to this quote. This is directly from the article I wrote on Sharp Edge Picks. Over a whole year of betting small to medium-sized underdogs daily, winning 146 games allows you to break even. 141 wins and you're an average loser. And 151 wins makes you a strong pro with the 3.4% profit margin. Annually, there is only a 10-game gap between tourist and professional. So it's a very fine line, end quote. That's the volatility in this. It's crazy. You have to understand that there's going to be ups and downs. You really got to understand your systems and double check them to get this and have any form of success.
And so, again, what I want to center in, just focus upon him, but in terms of what you just said with the volatility, is if you have a system and where you're playing dogs and the payouts are big, it's important for people to understand and remember that you're going to lose more than you're going to win. But the wins, the payoffs are such, right? They only have to win 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 4 to actually be profitable, right?
Exactly right. If you think about,
I'm trying to dumb it down for people, right? Because sometimes you start getting into numbers and
So
right,
so,
ratios
so,
and
correct. So let's go through it again. If you're betting NBA dogs at the half, getting 2-1 on your money, and you win 35% of your bets, and you're getting 2-1, so you're getting back 3 times your money. It's 0.35 times 3, which works out to be 105, which is a 5% profit margin. You're only winning 35% of the time. So you're losing 65% of the time. And if you want to play with 0.65 to the exponent 5 or 10, you're going to get a number like anytime you make a bet, there's like a 1 in 30 or 1 in 40 chance you're about to go on like an 8 or 10 game losing streak. That just happens. Don't press. Don't get upset. If the system's good, the system's good. Flip a coin one time if you're bored 400 or 500 times. I'm serious. And tell yourself a narrative. You're going to hit tails 8 out of 9 times. What are you going to say? Oh, the way I flicked it off my nail was conducive to tails. There's a lot of noise in the system. Yeah. It's volatility in a way is a good gambler's best friend because they can handle it. They can convince the losers, or the losers can convince themselves that maybe they're winners with bad luck. And it's very hard to separate the winners from the losers. So you really have to understand your system and be disciplined.
All right, let's get to golf this week. There's actually 2 PGA events going on simultaneously. We'll call it the more minor level event, even though it's a full field event, but doesn't have as many points attached to it. And I don't want to get too deep into how that all works because it's not that important at the moment. But there is the Puerto Rico Open going on, and there's some Canadian content there. But there's more Canadian content, and the big names are at the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. Second round is underway. Right, they tee off pretty early on Thursday and Friday because they have to get everybody in and off the course before darkness. Rory McIlroy was the leader after round 1 at 7 under. I think he's actually ready to go on a bit of a run. The way he didn't play a lot to start the year, but his results have been solid. And if he gets the putter going, he's going to be very dangerous. And can't wait to talk about him when we talk about the Masters in a few weeks. And the Players is next week, which we may not get to talk about because we're going to be immersed in March Madness. But I want to remind everybody, when I make these outright winner picks in golf, for me, they're just for fun. Like I'm always going to give out like 3 picks at different sort of odds levels. I may play one of them or I may wait. And if I know I'm going to watch, especially on Sunday, like I was talking about with last week where Sepp Straka came from way back and won the Honda Classic. So these are fun picks. I wouldn't put a lot of money on them. And I'm never looking at like the top probably 4, 5, 6 guys because there isn't as much value and it's not as much fun as it is cashing a longer odds ticket. So I'll always look for somebody at around 15 to 20 to 1. Then somebody at like 30 to 40 or 50 to 1, and then maybe a longer shot at 100 to 1 or more. And that's usually going into the tournament, but because we're here on a Friday morning and one round is in the books, the odds are up and they're live, most places throughout the day, even as guys are playing. So, of the lowest odd guy I like at the moment is Will Zalatoris, who, was rookie of the year last year, as I recall. If not, he was like second. He made a shit ton of money. And boy, if you watch golf, this guy is an immaculate ball striker. And you need to do that at this course. It's a long course. You got to drive it in play. And even then, you're still left with a lot of mid to long irons. And so you need to look for players who have, that is a strength in their game. And as I talked about last week, horses for courses. Look at the historical performance on this golf course, because in this particular case, it's always the same course when they play the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So Zalatoris, 3 back of the lead after round 1. He's plus 1,400. My slightly longer odds pick is the Australian Mark Leishman, who is 5 back. He's at plus 3,300, so 33 to 1. Traditionally plays well on this course. Great iron player, and also a good putter. And when he gets hot with the putter, he can really go low. And then my longer shots, my long shot is Matthew Fitzpatrick at 200 to 1. He was plus 1, so he was 8 back. He's got to have a good day today, or that's a wasted pick because he's got to make the cut. And then I always like a little Canadian content. So Adam Svenson made a run last week. He faltered on the back nine, which was a shame. But Corey Connors, who was third last year, he was even in the first round. I saw he had an early bogey this morning. I didn't see if that impacted his odds because we were about to start talking. He's 125 to 1. And the other Canadian who was only 5 back, Nick Taylor, is at 135 to 1. And I always like to, I like to, sprinkle a little bit on the Canadians because we're so well represented now on the PGA Tour. And it's a ton of fun to see Canadians, up near the top of the leaderboard and on TV now every weekend. It's incredible how much better we've become at golf. It's a testament to, I think Mike Weir really was, and I don't want to disrespect the guys that came before, the Dave Bars and Dan Haldersons and Ian Leggett and Richard Zokels, but Weir winning the Masters, and the Tiger effect as well, has really pushed Canadian golf to entirely new levels. So those are my long shot fun plays. Again, I want to stress that for this week's PGA Tour stop, at least one of them, and the big one, the Arnold Palmer Invitational.
Yeah.
Now go ahead.
Just 2 thoughts on that. One, I agree with you. Whether you're a sharp bettor or a casual bettor, when you're betting things between 20 and 80 to 1, the odds are overwhelmingly that it doesn't happen. So even if you're a serious bettor, you can only sprinkle a couple of shekels on it. The other thing I wanted a lot of golf bettors to listen to and understand is the nature of golf. In the first 2 rounds, you got 3 players playing against each other. And then the last 2 rounds are heads up. In those first 2 rounds with 3 players playing against each other, there's way more juice. You really need a bigger edge. The books tend to love the 3-way bets because it's much easier to hide the vig. For example, if all 3 guys are about equal, they should all be plus 200. But it's harder to calculate how much vig there is when one guy's plus 230 and one guy's plus 160 and the third guy's plus 140. If 2 guys are playing heads up and one guy's minus 120 and one guy's minus 140, we all know they're taking a lot of juice because they're both minuses and their minus is a big number. It's harder to calculate in a 3-way line. The predatory sports books, like they always do, rape and pillage whenever they can. So they take a lot more juice on the 3-way lines. So be very careful if you're betting matchups in golf in the first 2 rounds, where there's a 3-way line, because you got to overcome a lot more vig than in the last 2 rounds.
And like all the sports, I'm hoping, and we've talked briefly about this, and we're planning on talking a lot more about golf betting, likely ahead of maybe a week or 2, or even the week of the Masters, where we're going to get, an expert golf bettor, because I'm not going to claim to be an expert golf bettor. I know the sport. I watch the sport. I play the sport. I like the sport. But from a betting perspective, and the incredible myriad of options you have now betting golf, we want to get, a pro on here to talk about how to bet golf and to take advantage of all the opportunities that are there, right? We always talk about now that the books can only do so much when they're giving you so many betting options, right, within a single event, right? They can't be perfect. Yes, there's algorithms and computers that create the odds, but when they're giving you that many options, right, somewhere along the way, they may not be as sharp as they could be. And that's where you want to take advantage. And I think there are those kind of opportunities in golf. And we're going to try and bring an expert on in the very near future as we head to the majors, which gets more eyeballs and casual bet. And don't forget, right, we're a month to the day, right, where everything opens up in Ontario. April 4th is the magic day where all the other books will be operating, aside from just the OLG, run by our favorite government. So that brings us to our gambling story or stories of the week. You wanted to touch upon a couple of things. One was this announcement. I kind of lied at the beginning when I said I didn't know, because I just remembered. One of the things you mentioned to me was this. There was a story that came out this week about a partnership between Amazon and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. And we were both a little puzzled by exactly what it means. Have you been able to figure it out?
No, I haven't. So for our listeners, Amazon, and I'm just reading directly from SBC America, which is a great source of information in the gambling community. Quote, Amazon has announced that its subsidiary, Amazon Web Services, has partnered with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, aiming to transform sports betting in Canada through the use of advanced technology driving fan engagement. You can then read the whole article. I don't have the faintest clue what they're talking about. I don't have the faintest clue how the technology is going to work or how sports bettors are going to benefit. One guy who seemed to understand technology told me that it was going to tie in MLSE and sports betting. And I asked him, how is MLSE going to take sports bets when they own the team? And he said, great question. He didn't know. So that went to a dead end. I was on a call yesterday. I think you were on it also for Briefly. The parlay, hosted by Steve McAllister, a great writer for the Toronto Star.
Hold on. Yeah, sorry. I just want to add, that's Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern on Twitter Spaces, right?
Mm-hmm. And everybody can call in. We had a couple of casual newbies who were just asking how they're going to fund their accounts or how their gray markets are going to transition over. There were a few top executives on the call that work for big companies, that have worked for big companies, Rogers, Bell, etc. in the past. And when I asked the question, the answer was nobody had a clue. So I don't know what the announcement is. I don't know what it means. I don't follow it. It seems like somebody's trying to do something with sports betting, but I can't tell you anything further.
The only thing that popped into my mind, and I read it twice too, to try and figure out, right? Because it's all sort of general, press release, gobbledygook, but you're not really entirely sure what it is they're doing. The only thing that I can think of is that the Amazon technology, that maybe they're going to do something whereby you can place bets during games, like in stadium. But obviously MLSE is not the book, right? They'd probably have to partner up with a book or two or something along those lines. Or maybe they're going to give you statistical information that you can look up on your phone during the course of the game. I'm just speculating, but I'm with you. And it's something, again, all these kind of stories that we're going to start to see as the market opens up, we'll pay attention to, and we'll do our best to explain them. We couldn't on this one. And there was one more thing you wanted to get to, something you saw from the DraftKings CEO, right? It was an interview or a quote from him? It's a him, right? Is it a him or a her? I don't remember.
He admitted that while the company has big plans for the Ontario market, he doesn't expect the major American players to be able to dominate the province's gaming and betting industry early on. Basically, DraftKings and FanDuel had a huge leg up on the competition in the U.S. because they allowed fantasy before sports, and they got 60% of the market. Canada didn't have fantasy, didn't have DraftKings and FanDuel, but we did have a gray market. So we have guys who have been betting on Betway and Bet365 for a long time. So their customers are used to it, and transitioning for the new U.S. guys is going to take time. So basically, DraftKings and FanDuel, while they love Ontario and they love Canada, maybe they don't advertise as hard here, or maybe they do and they try, but they know it's going to be a tough slog because of the way our market behaved, which was very different than the U.S.
And to take that a step further, for those, and there's a lot of people out there, me included, I know you're included in this, that have been betting on the gray market for years.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen anything yet, and I don't know if you have, and we're going to be keeping an eye on this as to how people will transition from the gray market to the legal market, right? You have an account with, say, a Bet365, you have money in your account, and now I'm pretty sure, and I don't want to keep pumping their tires per se, but Bet365, we assume, will be one of those operating right out of the gate on April 4th. And how will that transition work, right? Where your money's going to go from a gray market account to a legit account, right? I haven't seen or heard anything about that, and we're only a month away. So that's something we're going to monitor. Have you seen anything?
I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard anything. I've heard stories where they think you'll have to click forms or you'll have to do things. Knowing these operators, if they could get away with it on April 4th, I would just have an opt-in. As an FYI, we're licensed in your jurisdiction. Your money is safe. You're in this. This is great. Click here for a bonus. Continue betting. You have life.
Right, you may not have to move on. Right, you may not have to do anything. Right, they may just be able to flick a switch and it's legit. right? In terms of your money that's currently, with one of the gray market operators.
Correct. Now, I just want our listeners to know before we end this show, we are not going to have a show next week because we're going to do a huge March Madness special on Tuesday, March 15th. So plenty of time after that show to then fill in the brackets, make spread and future bets before the Thursday noon tip-off. We're looking at doing a double show with brackets, spread, bets, guests, you name it. So no show on Friday next week. So instead, Tuesday, March 15th, we're going to do a doubleheader. We're going to skip the next 2 Fridays, focus on March Madness for 2 hours. And then best of all, after the show, I'm going to Vegas with my brother for the weekend. 48 elimination tournament, real games in the 4 days. Really excited about that. I want to emphasize real games. I'm not a fan. This is my rant of the gimmicky play-ins on Tuesday and Wednesday for the NCAA tournament. The greedy, stupid NCAA would make way more money starting March Madness at 12:01 Thursday morning, meaning late Wednesday night games, or starting at 11 a.m. and having the last game at 11 p.m. on Thursday instead of starting at noon and ending at 9:30 at night, and have a clean 64-team tournament. Those play-ins are gimmicky. Putting your teams in the bracket as a play-in is stupid. They had an amazing thing. 64 teams is enough. The NCAA needs to fix that.
I don't even think I've watched the play-in games the last few years. Like it's like, yeah, whatever. Give me the full 64 and go from there.
When is it Thursday at noon? Let's do the countdown.
2 quick things. One, as Harley alluded to, we are actually going to fill out a full bracket on that show. One of the reasons why we're going to do 2 hours. We will together fill out a bracket, which means I guess we're going to have to agree on picks, right? It's going to be the Parleh Sports Betting Show bracket, right? If we're
that's interesting. I thought we were going to bring in a guest that maybe. Well, I was going to.
Are we going to do? Okay, well, let's hash it out right now. Are we going to do our own bracket sheets each individually, or are we going to do one collectively and have one bracket sheet where we're actually in agreement? I
say we go at least heads up and maybe make it a fun bet. Like one of us has to try to grow our bald heads for a couple of weeks and show some sprinkles of hair. Or we can bring in, I was going to bring in a guest to do the brackets with us. So the three of us could maybe find a 3-way fun bet. Now that things are opening up, maybe we bet some wings during the finals or something like that. And we could do a 3-way bracket just so we could talk about some different opinions.
And okay. And finally, and so, we'll keep promoting that on social media. March 15th, Tuesday, March 15th, our 2-hour March Madness show. You mentioned you're going to Vegas for the first weekend. Have you ever been before for an NCAA tournament weekend?
I have, but this was like 15 plus years ago where you used to just be able to grab a seat in a sports book. I was looking online. I'm dying to go to Circa Sports. They apparently have the best sports book. They take the biggest limits. They're sold out. Their sportsbook seats are sold out on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And to get a seat in the sportsbook for Sunday costs you $225 US. It comes with 5 drink tickets. So basically $40 a beer. It's more expensive than the fanciest strip joints or even Scotiabank Arena.
I have been as well. It's been a while. And in those days, like, you didn't pay for a seat, right?
No.
You show up, you get your seat, or you stand if there's standing
and you got
room.
Free drinks. They used to
and free booze.
There weren't even drink tickets. They would just give you free drinks.
I will say, having not been there, in this new sort of world where you have to pay for seats and all this kind of stuff, I will say it was one of the great experiences. It was phenomenal. And the year I actually went, I think I've been once for the first weekend, which was it was too much. It was overload, right? Because you have 3-4 games going on at a time. It was hard to focus. But I went once for the second weekend, right? Where you really only have maybe 2 games and they stagger them. And it was a year that UCLA won. And so I was there the middle weekend. And this is obviously going back many, many years. And, but because of the proximity to Los Angeles, right, you can imagine how nuts it was with UCLA being a factor. Right. That was the year UCLA won, the point guard, Tyus
Tyus Edney hit that miracle
Tyus
shot.
Edney, the full court, right? Inbounds took it the full court. That was either in the Sweet 16. I think it was in the Sweet 16. And the place went insane. It was an incredible one. I'll never forget. Tyus Edney going the length of the court in like 3 seconds, hit the winner, and it also cashed the ticket for. It was an amazing experience. I highly recommend it, even though I haven't been, in the last 10 years or even more to see what it's like now. But it's a lot of fun to go to Vegas for one of the tournament weekends.
Okay, so I know my answer. I just checked it. It was 24 years ago. I saw Bryce Drew, Valpo. Remember the coach?
Oh, Valpo, yes.
And that Hail Mary pass, and he hit the 3 to beat Ole Miss. I saw that game at the Sportsbook, and that game was played in 1998. For the kids listening, they have no clue what we're talking about. You can just Google Bryce Drew, and automatically it comes up game winner, Valpo versus Ole Miss. Not sure if you'll see it in the video, but his father was actually the coach of the team.
Yeah.
Grew up a Hail Mary play for his son, who was a sharp 3-point shooter. They went for the win. He hit the 3. It was unbelievable. I think they were a 13 that knocked off a 4. They were about a 10, 12-point dog or something in the game.
And if you want to look up the end-to-end Tyus Edney for the UCLA Bruins.
Yeah, I think that was even before that.
One. Yeah, I think it might have been. Shit, we're old.
Tyus Edney buzzer beater. That just popped up.
There 95. You
go. That was from 95. Yep, those are memories.
Great memories. And again, something to look forward to if you want to check out and go to Vegas. But again, it's a whole new world there now where you got to pay for your seat at the sportsbook. Like, that's just wrong on so many levels. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole at the moment because we're kind of out of time. A reminder, send us your questions, your comments, your picks. Give us your thoughts looking ahead to March Madness for our 2-hour special on March 15th. You can email us questions@theparleh.com. You can hit us up on Twitter @JoreyMiddle or @SharpEdgePicks or other places where you can find the Parlay on social media. And, we really do want to hear from you, and we will use your question, your comment, tell us we're dicks and we don't know what we're talking about. Whatever it is, if it's entertaining and makes sense, we'll talk about it on a future show. And so that's going to do it for this week. I don't even know how we filled an hour, but we did, Harley. I guess we're both rather verbose. I certainly would fall into that category. And so on the way out, we say, for Harley, I'm Jorey. May all your picks be winners, ours too. And we'll talk to you not next Friday, but Tuesday, March 15th for a 2-hour March Madness special. This is the Parleh Sports Betting Show on Canada's Sports Betting Network, the Parleh. Talk to you in about 10 days. Have a good one. And Harley, hope you kick ass again with your NBA Super Halftime picks.
Thanks a lot, Jorey. Enjoy the golf.
Thanks.